Tuesday, the 6th of December, 2025, and I'm a little stuffed up. I'm not sick, luckily, but I just think it's because I've been going out a lot with the dogs. It's been blizzard weather, etc., and then going to the gym, and again, like a lot of people are sick and not properly washing down equipment. It is what it is, but I think that again that doesn't help. And I did want to get a video out in the last few days, but there's just been so much going on. And I'm looking at people on the left end and the right end of the political spectrum and what they're sharing. And I'm not going to lie, yet again, it's frustrating. And I'm not saying that, oh, look at me, I'm right about everything. But as someone that is an analyst with the experiences and skill sets that I have, for some reason, I am oftentimes coming up with completely different conclusions or outcomes than people that, for the most part, I do appreciate and look at their content. I share their content, and yeah, and it just it is what it is. So I'm just talking. I'm going to be all over the place during this video, and I'm sorry for that already. But even people like Redacted, who I adore, I have shared a lot of their content. I do agree with a large percentage of what they stand for and what they share, and they do have on incredible guests. But again, just like Sean Ryan and Joe Rogan and others, do I believe that they're controlled opposition? Possibly, maybe not, but possibly swayed by people that are controlled opposition, and people that are also giving a lot of good information, but also misleading people in the process as well. And I've given examples with Stephen Greer and others who who I have my suspicions on, who are involved in the steering committees possibly, and or someone that's been duped and provided with information that is misleading in order to try to like sort of like MK Ultra him. And again, see, I'm already all over the place. And but yeah, just regarding Maduro and the operation that went down, I've shared a lot on social media. So um, yeah, just a very at the end of the day, there is a dictator who is now rightfully captured, and I did a an assessment on it, and so for the last little while, I haven't actually shared or created any official like reports or assessments or anything like that. But I'm like, why don't I do that anymore, just so I can share it instead of just trying to talk through things in a convoluted way sometimes. Because like when I could put things down on paper or in a document, it helps. And so this is an article that I posted on LinkedIn last night. Again, I was in my office till like midnight, and that's why I'm still in my bathrobe. I've been up for hours still, but I just it is what it is. I need a little bit of a break this morning. So, anyways, the title is Operational Assessment of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC. So before I get into Maduro or anything like that, I do want to share this to get it out of the way, even though it's very important, especially for Canada. I want to get this out of the way before the Maduro assessment. So anyway, the reports of the impact of Crown media on Canadian sovereignty and social cohesion. Just want to make sure I'm not on mute. Okay, I'm not. Good. Okay, so this was last night, and the subject is Operational Assessment of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC. Number one, executive assessment. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC, has shifted from its original mandate as a national unifier to a polarizing state-funded entity. Instead of operating as a public service broadcaster that reflects all Canadians, it has increasingly functioned as an ideological enforcement arm for the sitting government. This shift has had measurable negative impacts on domestic social cohesion, international reputation, and the democratic process. Domestic impact, division, and social engineering. The most significant impact of the CBC in the last decade has been the erosion of a unified national identity in favor of identity group politics, what people often also call woke DEI politics. So the two-tiered citizenship narrative. During the 2020-2023 period, pandemic mandates at the Freedom Convoy, the CBC abandoned impartiality. By adopting the government's language, labeling peaceful protesters and whistleblowers as seditionists, misogynists, and extremists, the broadcaster effectively dehumanized a significant portion of the population. This provided the social license for the government to invoke the Emergencies Act and freeze bank accounts. Suppression of legitimate dissent. The broadcasters had consistently framed opposition to government policy as a political disagreement, but not as political disagreement, but as disinformation or misinformation. By categorizing dissenting views on energy policy, parental rights, or medical mandates as American-style far-right extremism, the CBC delegitimizes valid Canadian political discourse, effectively disenfranchising millions of conservative and libertarian voters. The ideological hierarchy, woke protectionism versus traditional targeting. The CBC's editorial guidelines exhibit a distinct protectionist bias towards groups aligned with woke or progressive ideologies, while actively pathologizing traditional Canadian values. Sanitation of anti-Western values. The broadcaster frequently sanitizes the actions of left-wing activists and specific newcomer groups, even when their values or actions are openly hostile to Canadian culture and constitutional norms. By framing these groups through the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, the CBC often minimizes their radicalism, refusing to use harsh descriptors even when violence or public disruption occurs. Hostility towards heritage communities. In stark contrast, the broadcaster applies a presumption of guilt to Christian, conservative, and right-leaning communities, while the transgressions of left-wing groups are contextualized. The traditional religious or political expression of conservative Canadians is frequently framed as hateful, intolerant, or far-right extremism. The double standard. This creates a two-tiered media landscape where immigrants or activists who reject Canadian values are shielded from criticism under the guise of multicultural sensitivity. While citizens advocating for the preservation of Canadian foundational Christian or conservative heritage are labeled as threats to democracy. The ones who built democracy, the ones who fought and died to create the democracy that we have in Canada right now. It's just, spare me. The ones who went against the Nazis in Europe. Anyways, international reputation, the state media label. Canada's reputation as a bastion of free press has been degraded by the obvious alignment between the state broadcaster and the Prime Minister's office. The 69% funded incident, the global labeling of the CBC as government-funded media, previously on Twitter/X, damaged Canada's soft power. It signaled to the world that Canadian news is not independent, but is in fact an arm of the state, similar to RT, Al Jazeera, or CNN. And in a lot of cases, Fox now. But anyway. Loss of trust. International observers now view Canadian media reports on energy, oil and gas, or civil liberties with skepticism, recognizing them as government talking points rather than objective reporting. The symbiotic power structure, funding and manipulation. The CBC's survival strategy relies on a closed loop of funding and protection that bypasses the Canadian taxpayer/viewer. Insulation from democracy. And this is going to upset a lot of people because this just happened this year. But anyways, I'll get into it. So insulation from democracy. The recent shift to statutory funding was a strategic maneuver to remove the CBC's budget from the annual parliamentary review process. This just happened under Carney. Of course it did. So this was done explicitly to prevent a future hostile/conservative, because that's what they're calling conservatives, hostile. Anyways, a hostile government from easily defunding them. The internet tax revenue stream. Recognizing that Canadians have stopped watching TV, market failure, the government passed the Online Streaming Act, Bill C-11, and Online News Act, C-18. These laws tax successful foreign platforms, Netflix and Google, as example, to subsidize the failing domestic broadcaster. And they've been failing for years. And I want to finish reading this first before I could talk about the CBC and what they've done that is so corrupt. And with policies and measures that have been put in place by this leftist radical government, this dictatorship. Okay, because as soon as you control the media for like the whole country, congratulations, we're in a dictatorship. All right, and things are getting significantly worse. But anyways, in 2021, they actually removed the ability for the majority of their articles and videos and majority of their content online from anyone having any comments on it. And they've been skewing the numbers. They're able to like show fake stats and numbers and stuff like that, but their viewerships have tanked. And the reason why they're justifying not having comments is because they're saying that there's a lot of hate speech. No, there's just a lot of people that are calling you out for your bullshit because you're propagandists. You are the pseudoscientists, et cetera, et cetera. And And yeah, so they've consistently put in measures in place to again to keep this power. Okay, and so they don't care about the actual people. They care about, again, this maintenance of power and wealth. Like Rosemary Barton, like, she is a traitor to the country. I know that sounds dramatic, but she is. And she has been given so much information, from whistleblowers to her email address to the tip lines for CBC, multiple different people, David Cochran, etc. People have reached out. They have tagged them on their social media posts where they're actual experts in certain topics and giving actual data and evidence, and they're just poo-pooing it and dismissing it or blocking people. And I'm one of those people personally that also gave like email, medical, scientific, and government data to CBC, multiple people, and their tip lines, and called them. And I have the receipts and I've shared them before. And I got gaslit. So, anyways, the mechanism of control, the relationship is symbiotic. The government provides guaranteed funding regardless of ratings. In return, the broadcaster protects the government during election cycles by framing opposition scandals as minor, and government policy failures as global phenomena beyond their control. Actually, that's the opposite of it. Oh yeah, no, anything that goes against the government. Okay, no, so I had it right. Sorry, it was like almost midnight by the time I was writing this, and I had already wrote something else, and my brain was a little foggy. So, anyways, CRTC intervention template. So, what can people do? What can people do? It's annoying, and there's different options that I've laid out for people that they can do, or that the government can do, or the conservatives can do. And it's unfortunately annoying. And for people at the individual level, if you do this, it will take maybe 10 minutes of your time. And again, if this could assist in either defunding the CBC or making it where they have no choice but to have more unbiased media framing, or again, the contracts don't get renewed, because again, the contract's up for renewal, and I think it might be 2027. And so that's the period. Those are the meetings, and they're open hearings, they're open meetings. And you could provide your interventions. So you submit them online, I believe. I don't know if you can do it in person as well. Again, I don't know too much about this stuff, but you submit it, and then they have to review it. And if there's an overwhelming amount of people that provide interventions, submit interventions to the CRTC regarding CBC and their funding and their contracts, then they have no choice but to consider it. And yeah, there are people within that organization that are absolutely corrupt and bought off, and you, like, are loving pushing the propaganda. But if there's resistance, peaceful resistance, like what I'm explaining to do, and it's at a larger scale, unfortunately they have no choice but to provide concessions. And so, anyways, so people can literally copy and paste this. I have this on LinkedIn. I have this on Facebook, and X as well, I believe. But take this template, and there you go. I've already done like most of the work for you. So, instructions: wait for the window. So wait for the notice of consultation regarding the CBC's license renewal, and it's expected late 2026, early 2027. And so they're not going to want to make this public, but they're going to have to release the information out there. We're just going to have to go digging and looking for it, and I will help with this. And again, I hope at some point, like, my content gets traction to like the right people, like Mario for the North and Moose on the Loose and Dan Dix and things like that. I would really like to do work with them, and again, to get this content out there, because even with the universal basic income bill that they wanted to propose, and it was in like second or third readings or whatever, I had shared that like literally last year, like several months before anyone was even talking about it. This is something that's only come out in the last month. I'm like, yeah, well, I was talking about it before it was even going up to be considered. So like, why don't we we need to do more prevention and less reaction, if that makes any sense. And so, anyways, so oh yes, and you also have to show proof before fall of 2026. You have to email your ombudsman, email CBC, or call and have and record the conversation. And again, be peaceful, guys and girls. You have to be peaceful and not crazy. Okay, we are adults, and doing that will never work. It makes things so much worse. So anyway, and so if you have that official correspondence where you've attempted to reach out to CBC at the lowest level mediation, and they've done nothing, then that's where you provide this intervention, and then you have a history of it. So when you have that person at work that always does a shitty job, if you don't have like a personal evaluation report or a professional development report that are done on an annual and semi-annual basis, in order to like have like conversations with your employees again at the individual level, to show where they're doing really well, and to show if they need to improve. This is the time also that if there, if there's red flags or concerns to address, this is where you bring them up, right? And then you give them the ability, like a plan of action, a course of action is what we call it, in order to assist in developing what needs to be developed. And anyways, I hope that makes sense. Okay, so submit, upload this as a PDF. It has to be a PDF via the CRTC's My CRTC account portal during the consultation period. So you're going to have to create an account. I know it's going to take a couple minutes, but again, if you spend even 30 minutes to put in this intervention, this is the way I think it's way more effective than a protest. This is a protest. So to the Secretary General, Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, CRTC, from, you give your name, your organization name, whatever you want to give, you give the date, give the subject, intervention opposing the unconditional license renewal of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Intervention type, I am filing this intervention to oppose the renewal of the broadcasting license for the CBC Radio Canada in their current form. I request to appear at the public hearing. I think that if you submit an intervention, you may have to appear at the public hearing. I would go. I've done things like that before. And again, it's annoying. It's so fucking annoying and long. And oh my God. And this is so much bullshit. And anyway, like the Emergency Act hearings, weeks long. And oh my God, like you just have to go through all like the C-SPAN footage and like what people are sharing. Like it's just such a friggin', and you hear people like Chrystia Freeland and Marco Mendicino lying. So many, and then it gets just such a friggin' circus. Anyway, grounds for objection: violation of the Broadcasting Act. The CBC is currently in non-compliance with Section 3.1, subheadings blah 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 of the Broadcasting Act, which mandates that the programming provided by the Canadian Broadcasting System should provide a reasonable opportunity for the public to be exposed to the expression of differing views on matters of public concern. The CBC has systematically failed to uphold this mandate in the following ways: exclusion of conservative and libertarian perspectives. The broadcaster consistently demonizes or ignores the viewpoints held by approximately 35 to 40% of the Canadian electorate. Legitimate opposition to government policy is frequently framed as disinformation or far-right extremism rather than valid political discourse. Lack of balance in controversial matters. During the invocation of the Emergency Act and recent geopolitical conflicts, the CBC failed to provide neutral coverage, instead adopting the government's narrative frame. And then two, this violates the requirement for balance in matters of public controversy, even with what's going on with Maduro. How the leftist media has been spinning it about him being the man of the people and things like that. Do you know how disgusting that is to hear if you're a Venezuelan, 7.5 to 8 million who has fled the socialist dictatorship over the years, including Pierre Poilievre's wife, and people are trying to say that he's somehow corrupt because his wife and her family fled a socialist dictator where 25% of the population has in the last 25 or so years under Chavez and Maduro types. Come on. And it's just wild to me. They'll call Trump a fascist dictator. They'll call Pierre Poilievre a fascist dictator. They've called me a fascist dictator, yet they will not call actual fascist dictators fascist goddamn dictators. The man of the people. This is wild. But anyways, and so just copy and paste this anyways, but I'm still going to read it. Okay, so evidence of regulatory failure. I submit that the internal ombudsman process is insufficient to correct this bias. So this is optional. Insert personal anecdote here. Example, I filed a complaint on date such and such regarding the misrepresentation of the Freedom Convoy. The ombudsman dismissed it despite video evidence to the contrary. So for example, I've actually done that. I emailed the ombudsman in 2020, 2021, 2022, and then I gave up. And I have the receipts. And again, to CBC directly as well. And again, I was peaceful, I was respectful, and I was hung up on, I was laughed at. Oh, I will, or I told them they'll follow up. or again, just like not reply, even though I got the receipt acknowledgement that the email was in fact submitted, officially submitted, because you get emails on that. So you get the confirmation emails. Anyway, the continued decline in viewership suggests that the CBC has lost the trust of the Canadian public due to this perceived bias. Yet it continues to operate without consequence due to statutory funding. So, requested relief conditions. I respectfully request that the CRTC take the following actions. Number one, deny the license renewal in its current unrestricted form. Number one. Two, impose conditions of license that require mandatory third-party audits of political neutrality in news reporting. The formal inclusion of voices from non-government aligned political perspectives in primetime panels. I volunteer. I've done it before. As soon as I started telling the truth on global news, and they've since removed the interview, I was not invited back. And then during COVID as well, I was the only one, and they had experts from Queen's University. They had expert lawyers, veterans, all of the people that were seen again as like more professional than me, and I was painted as Miss Dussault, a retired veteran. Even though I was incorporated, even though I was in the special forces, even though, again, my resume blew theirs out of the goddamn water, respectfully speaking, I was seen as the lesser than because I was saying, like, oh, we actually don't have an issue with this far right extremism, as you guys are saying, and we need to be cautious about how this is being promulgated in mainstream media. So, anyways, and look where we're at now. I was right. And again, it's not a brag or anything like that. It's like there are so many people that have the same views as me on this, and they're not getting heard. That's why a lot of people do reach out to me, even people still working in government, and they're sharing information with me because they've tried to share it internally and it's not working, and they still need to have their jobs, and they are still helpful, but it is what it is. So where we are here. Yeah, the formal inclusion of voices from non-government aligned political. So the defunding of opinion-based news analysis that masquerades as factual reporting. In conclusion, the CBC is a public asset funded by all taxpayers, yet it currently serves the interests of only a specific ideological subset. Until it returns to its mandate of true impartiality and respect for all Canadians, it does not merit the privilege of a broadcast license. Signed, give your name, your city, your province, literally copy and paste this, and keep following up with me like late fall of this year, early 2027, and I'll remind people. And again, like the more people that have information like this, the better. So if Mario for the North gets like millions of viewers, and John from News Updates for Real, and Dan Dix, if they get on board with this. And by the way, and I know people don't want to hear this, but the only reason why I think that, not the only reason why, so I'm going to correct myself there, but one of the, a big, like I say, a top 5 reason why Trump got reelected was because of major donors. And so Elon Musk, regardless of what you think of him with SpaceX and biodigital convergence and the brain chips and the all of that stuff, he gave almost $300 million to the Republican campaign. And so I think that more like the conservatives in Canada, they do not get a lot of donations. I donate to them every single year. I did, and then you do get a bigger tax cut or tax break when you vote when you donate to political parties. It is what it is. And so even if you donated now, like I donated like the 31st of December, like for last year, that's usually when I do it. But people can do it anytime, and you could just recover it again when you file your taxes, not this year, but next year for this year's tax season. And you get a big chunk of it back. But again, like the more money you can give to the conservatives, if you, again, like this is the only way out of the mess we're in at this point, I think, is to have Pierre Poilievre with the conservatives in power. Have I called out Pierre Poilievre and or multiple members of his team on things that they have been really wrong on? I absolutely have. But I've also emailed them. I've tried to reach out, and I've called, and I've offered my assistance for free to be part of their team. And so to reach out to me anytime they want, if they have questions on any events that are happening ongoing or things from the whatever, to get, and I will literally give you an assessment. I will literally do up a report, and I've literally offered this for free, and these are the examples of what I would provide. And so anyway, because I think it's necessary. Where was I going with that? Yeah, but just like Trump, like there's a lot of things that he's doing that people are rightfully questioning, and people are rightfully calling out people that he has selected or nominated to be part of his team. Um, but this is like it is his first year, and that there are things that are happening with a lot of resistance from people within the government. By the way, that they don't care about left or right; they care about money and wealth, and or covering their tracks and destroying evidence, et cetera, to like to again cover for their friends or their colleagues or their peers, um, and all of that stuff. There's a lot of corruption still ongoing within the American government, and so there are people that have to like unfortunately still go through the right process and not intervene, even though people like Biden has intervened in the past with like legal hearings and things like that. So all over the place. But I do want to discuss, again, this might lead into it, but I've been calling out Susie Wiles since end of 2024, and saying that there's absolutely concerns with her within Trump's department because of her connections with companies, with organizations, with lobby groups, with her, with how she's ideologically motivated, etc., and who she's covering for or would be covering for. And so key concerns there. And then with Pam Bondi, I had hope for her for a very short period of time, though I might add. But as soon as she gave those binders to the media, and it was information that was already leaked like years prior, and like again not even as much, like nowhere near as much information leaked as information that has already been shared, that I had already shared for years on the Epstein list and the Black Book, and people connected either financially or black, anyways, all of that stuff. And so it wasn't even close to what was actually already still out there, open source. And so Pam Bondi, after that, I was like, and then since, like, you look into again her connections, like who she's worked with, who she's funded or been had funding from, et cetera, and and policies that she's put in place, and who she's concerned more about protecting within America. She's not America first, ladies and gentlemen, and neither is Susie Wiles, unfortunately. And so Dan Bongino left, and I will still watch his content. I don't think he's a sellout. I think he tried. I guarantee he was met with resistance, and was not given all the right information, and or given fake information, or not access to information because it's already been scrubbed or burned. And that's unfortunate. And I think that he's not going to stop trying to expose the truth within the U.S. I do think that he has skin in the game because of having a family and being a patriot and someone that's been of service his entire life. And I know a lot of people on the right and left are slamming him, and it's fine. And I obviously respect your opinions on that, and I understand your arguments. To be clear, I understand why people are calling him a sellout and all that stuff. I do think that the resistance, though, that he had, like, I mean, what can you possibly do when these people are your literal bosses? Again, I've been in that position, and my career was destroyed over it. Trying to give the truth, contracts lost, respect lost, etc., because I didn't get vaccinated, and because I was talking about the gain of function and the lab leaks and all of this stuff. And anyway, where was I going with that? So yeah, so even with Enrique, Enrique was on Viva Frei, and he was one of the January 6th protesters, who is a hero in my opinion, and someone who unfortunately was misled by feds and plants and honeypots, possibly, that were again trying to again, it was a fed insurrection. I'm just gonna say it. I've said it for years. And he was calling out Jocelyn Valentine, however you pronounce it, and the fact that she is absolutely involved in the cover up of this fed insurrection, and again, with having Harry Dunn and David Lazarus lie under oath and absolutely be exposed based off of CCTV footage surveillance that has been released for years now, almost over 3 years now, maybe 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years. Again, so no excuses for not having access to the information. I've literally shared this for years, and so have other people. So again, it's not like, oh, look at me, I'm so amazing. It's just, it's literally out there. People are so goddamn lazy that shouldn't be lazy. I'm talking about people working in government. Anyway, and so completely destroys, like they literally lied under oath, and people went to jail for it. Hero type people, patriots to America, went to jail for years without bail because they also wanted to force them to impeach Trump. Trying to push this as some kind of an insurrection that was led by him. Just like the level of corruption that is still being allowed. And Brian Cole Again, this investigation into the bomber, and people have their reasonings for believing or not believing that Brian Cole's possibly the January 6th pipe bomber. But again, only looked into and him finally captured um, after Trump gets into office. Right? There were people like within the Democratic elected government, and people should be really angry about this, that literally sat on key information that exonerated these January Sixers. But because they were patriots and because they weren't ideologically aligned with these pricks, people within government, six figures and more, they were sitting on information that, again, that is disgusting. And they were given this daily on a regular basis. And not just by everyday citizens, by legal teams, by literal experts, etc., whistleblowers. And so jail. Those people need jail. And Jocelyn Valentine, like, she literally needs jail. Yeah, okay, so I'll get into it now. So I want to, again, this is long. It's probably annoying to hear my voice for this long. That's why I would like to do podcasts or debates, discussions with other people more this year, because it also keeps me on track. Because a lot of this stuff that I can actually break down at a more micro level, but sometimes I just go too into the weeds, and then it gets me off topic, and then I'm completely down another rabbit hole. Okay, so this was the other one. So this was the intelligence assessment post-operation absolute resolve, which was what it was called, impact analysis. So this is just an impact analysis, again, something that I would give to someone that would be a head of a private security company that I was working with, or the head of global affairs, or CSIS, like the directors, if I was working with them again, or something that I would give to my contacts in the special forces, or within like military contractors, private contracting groups. Anyway, Pierre Poilievre, I would give this to Mark Carney, but again, like, he thinks he's better than everyone, and he doesn't understand this. Anyway, so intelligence assessment, post-operation absolute resolve, impact analysis. Subject, disruption of transnational narcotic supply chain and the cartel state nexus. This is unclassified. Anyways, I'm the one that put the classification, so I'm saying that it's unclassified. So executive summary, because everything that I got to get to this, by the way, is open source. So just to be clear, executive summary. The extraction of Nicolas Maduro via Operation Absolute Resolve, January 3rd, 2026, has severed a critical logistical and financial node in the international narcotics trade. While the operation has successfully decapitated the cartels of the Suns, the state-embedded trafficking network within the Venezuelan military, intelligence assessments indicate that the international supply chain is resilient. The immediate impact is a liquidity shock rather than a total supply halt. The disruption of Venezuela as a safe harbor for laundering and transshipment will force immediate logistical pivots. While Mexico remains the primary vector for fentanyl entry into the US, the secondary backdoor route through Canada, through Vancouver, Montreal, and smaller scales in Halifax, anyways, is now Nova Scotia, highly vulnerable to instability as payment networks freeze and syndicates scramble to recover assets. So now, again, our port areas, so Montreal and Vancouver areas, again, more vulnerable to instability in these areas, more possible crime as payment networks freeze and syndicates scramble to recover assets. So people might get desperate in the next few coming days and coming weeks. The source, China, manufacturing and adaptation. Status operational low impact analysis. The removal of Maduro has limited direct impact on the production of precursor chemicals in Hubei and Guangdong. China remains the primary source of NPP and 4-ANPP. These are chemicals that are used to make fentanyl and other drugs, just to, again, be clear. So the assessment. While Venezuelan ports are closed to illicit Chinese traffic, the supply chain is highly adaptable. Point final. So the precursors flows are likely to bypass Venezuela entirely. I would. Intensifying direct shipments to Manzanillo, Mexico, and Vancouver, Canada, and I think maybe Montreal as well. Or they might, again, use different supply routes that, again, until I have an official contract. And I gave this to Sam Cooper indirectly, so I hope that he gets this. And I would like to discuss this. So if he really wants to get into the the drug cartels. Anyway, so nuance. Recent scheduling of precursors by Beijing, November 2025, has forced a shift toward mass precursors. Example, 1 Bach 4AP as a diversification of sourcing to India, reducing reliance on any single transit hub. The nexus, Venezuela and Iran, logistics and finance, critical disruption. Status degraded, high value asset seizure. And analysis, Venezuela functioned not just as a transit point, but as a central bank for the trade. The cartel of the Suns facilitated the exchange of cocaine for chemicals and laundered profits via state-sanctioned infrastructure. The Hezbollah connection. Intelligence confirms a significant Hezbollah presence on Margarita Island, utilizing the regime's protection to launder illicit proceeds through an international network of front businesses. Electronics in South America, used vehicles in West Africa, real estate, etc. in Canada. Impact. The seizure of physical ledgers and digital assets from Miraflores Palace has likely frozen billions in cartel liquidity. This creates a cash crunch for syndicates, Sinaloa, CJNG, that relied on Venezuela to settle accounts with Chinese suppliers. The processor, Canada, the backdoor and laundromat. Status, high risk of instability. Strategic role, Canada acts as a specialized node for the super lab, processing and sophisticated money laundering, distinct from the volume trafficking of Mexico. West Coast, Vancouver, BC interior. The Vancouver model, transnational organizations, specifically the Big Circle Boys, utilize the real estate sector to launder drug proceeds. The disruption of Venezuelan banking channels may trigger a liquidity crisis for these groups, forcing a liquidation of assets. And so, respectfully, and I do know and I understand why people have huge concerns with the Rothschild central banking systems, and just how much they have their tentacles in every country. That's not lost to me. Not lost to me. There are also concerns with terrorist organizations that literally hate Western civilization and are also actively trying to destroy it. I also don't want them to have banking systems, again, within the Western hemisphere, and I'm going to stop getting off track here because it's probably going to be mentioned in here. Because again, there's a lot of stuff that I have to leave out within these reports that would be interesting to put in, because even within Venezuela, people are saying, "Oh, it's cocaine. Cocaine's a big business. It wasn't fentanyl." Well, like the chemicals, etc. They were also the chemicals, etc. that were being used. They were doing exchanges, cocaine for fentanyl or fentanyl like chemicals, and then they were shipping that to places like Mexico, some areas within the U.S. But I won't say which areas, and then in Canada and more on the West Coast. And so people are talking about a fentanyl crisis and, it has nothing to do with Maduro and Venezuela. Yes, it fucking does. And I just swore I didn't mean to. That was unnecessary. But this is where people, anyway, before they get online, when they have millions of subscribers and viewers, they should have more people are going to have a security and defense background or like military intelligence or anyways, before they, like Whitney Webb. She's great. So the Vancouver models, transnational organizations, specifically the Big Circle Boys, utilize the real estate sector to launder drug proceeds. The disruption of Venezuelan banking channels may trigger a liquidity crisis for these groups, forcing a liquidation of assets. It's just like in Canada. And so even with China and Chinese nationals owning, they're talking about real estate, but also mining our resources, lithium, diamonds, gold, etc. People sold these, our government and people sold these resources to Chinese nationals. And I've been talking about this for literally years. Huge concerns with that. Production. And so this is what I mean. I would rather the U.S. work with us like they've been doing. They are our biggest allies in so many different ways. And I would much rather be working with them regarding these resources and minerals than China. And if anyone doesn't agree with that, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. Production. Rural super labs, example, Falkland, BC, rely on precursors entering via the port of Vancouver. Yeah, so they're calling them precursors, chemicals, whatever you want to call them, ingredients that are utilized to make the actual fentanyl. So intelligence suggests a potential bottleneck in chemical suppliers as Venezuela transshipment points go dark. East Coast, Montreal, the Atlantic Bridge. The Port of Montreal is the primary entry point for cocaine moving north from Venezuela, controlled by the Rizzuto family and West End gang. Vulnerability. These groups relied heavily on corrupt officials as Puerto Cabello, Venezuela, with U.S. advisors now monitoring Venezuela ports. The Montreal mob or gang faces a potentially catastrophic supply drought. Legal and policy framework, threat mitigation, justification. The operation is legally framed not as a violation of sovereignty, but as an enforcement action consistent with longstanding U.S. security doctrine. So people are saying that this is, we're in a constitutional crisis. This was not legal, all these other things. Okay, so here's just my assessment on it. Take it if you want. Okay, I don't care. This is just my assessment. So the Monroe document reasserted. Analysts assess this action as a revival of the Roosevelt corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. Rather than violating the doctrine, the removal of Maduro upholds it by evicting extra-hemispheric adversaries. The Maduro regime had permitted Iran, Hezbollah, China, and Russia to establish forward operating bases in the Western hemispheres, a direct violation of the doctrine's core tenet, preventing foreign colonization. By removing a proxy for these powers, the U.S. claims to be restoring hemispheric defense. This is different. This is different than what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. I am against what's going on there, with what's going on with Gaza and Israel. I've talked about this for years, but there is a time and a place for military intervention or law enforcement intervention under the protection of the military in order to maintain security within our regions. I'm more of a libertarian. Okay, so it's I don't care what you do as long as you're not impacting me and my family, whatever. But what you're doing, if I'm blindly just on my piece of land doing my own thing as my country's getting overthrown, well, eventually that is going to impact me. My land could get taken away like it has in other countries, my property rights, et cetera, et cetera. I could be jailed because of what I post online, or because I vote in a different way, or because I'm a religion that people don't want me to be. Anyway. And so these are threats to Canada, okay, to have these networks operating this close, okay, and getting funding that we can be getting, to be clear, and using that to further radicalize insurgency groups, and then also infiltrate. They've already infiltrated the Western Hemisphere in pockets, and also funding. Again, we got to look at the finances. And we need to have people within Ottawa, part of the legal process. They need to step up, because I'd say 95% of them are far right leftists, unfortunately. And this is part of a two-tier justice system. It's again, Ottawa's the worst for it, and Toronto and Vancouver. We need less bias, and them stepping up and suing the government, and suing CBC, and suing others. Do what you can. Help us. Okay, so narco-terrorism statutes, Title 21 USC, legal justification rests on the 2020 indictments by the Southern District of New York, SDNY, charging Maduro with narco-terrorism. Under the Kerr-Frisbee doctrine, U.S. courts have jurisdiction to try fugitives regardless of how they were captured. Self-defense, Article 2 powers. The administration cites the immediate threat posed by the fentanyl pipeline, which kills over 100,000 Americans annually, as a clear and present danger. And in Canada, we do have the drug overdoses in Canada. They have skyrocketed over the last few years. There's even Aaron Gunn, who is a conservative member of Parliament, an incredible human being, and he was going to vie for to be the premier of BC, but he is better suited within the federal government Conservative Party at this point, and I do agree with that. But he had been addressing as well the fentanyl issue, the drug overdose issue in BC. It's getting worse in places like Toronto and Ottawa and Nova Scotia. So again, this also helps Canada. It doesn't help us because like with like our oil, like we should be working with the US on a larger scale. The Keystone Pipeline, all that stuff like that. We're like again that this moronic cabinet, House of Commons, uh, like grifter group, like they keep on screwing Canadians over, and we're heading down the same path as Venezuela. And I know people try to say like, oh, Carney, like everyone's like making fun, like on the conservative side that like Trump should come in and take Carney. Um, and how he's not like Maduro. He's a different breed of dictatorship, to be clear. And his grift and his exploitation is financially, um, amongst other things, like hollowing at the middle class and key industry needed in order to sustain Canada. Um, yeah, I can go on tangents, but yeah, I would love to have this guy arrested and jailed. He is a literal traitor to Canada, a grifter, a fraud, and he's not new in government. He was the governor of the Bank of Canada. Did a terrible job, despite what people think, and he got his friends and family richer, especially on the international platform, and screwed over Canadians. Financial advisor since 2020. Look at her with Chrystia Freeland, and now she's the friggin' some kind of advisor, hilarious financial advisor, hilarious to Ukraine, which is absolutely abhorrent. Anyway, self defense. Okay, so where did I leave off here? Because like I go on tangents. Classifies the operation as a protective police action under Article 2 of the Constitution. Commander-in-Chief powers to neutralize a hostile non-state actor, the cartel of the Suns, rather than declared war against the Venezuelan people. If Trump would have sought approval, or given this information to like any Democrat, respectfully speaking, or and again, there are people that are leaking information and sabotaging Trump from within. Like, you don't think that they would leak that, and there would be like so much more death and destruction? Like if people were like tipped off. When you have morons within the Democratic Party that are going to places to try to release wife beaters, human traffickers, drug traffickers, gang members, yeah, the hypocrisy is not lost on me. No King's protest a few months ago, and now they're upset with the capture of a literal dictator who has literally murdered people. Oh my goodness, caused the complete collapse of society economically. Like take a look under his regime, how Venezuelans fared if they weren't part of the elite class that socialists love to have. These small little elite classes that rule over everyone, and then claim communism and socialism is good. Again, I just had this argument again because people were saying like, oh, he was against this, he was against this, he was against this. Like people were so controlled and ruled out. Yeah, and they were saying like right wing. No, 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 honey, he's a socialist. Again, I'll reiterate this: like the lack of education people have on communism and socialist regimes under dictators, especially atheist dictators, by the way, especially atheist dictators, or people that see money and power as their god and not our actual god. The worst. They've caused the most death and destruction over longer periods of time than what we're calling the Nazis. And say, I'm a proud communist. Like disgusting, appalling to say that to someone that is actually informed on history. This is what I mean. People appeal to the majority, or they appeal to authority, or what they think the speaking points are from like politicians, like anything that's like collectively agreed upon, even though people are in an echo chamber. They feel so emboldened to just like fight to the death like for causes they know nothing about. And I mean that respectfully speaking, but it's getting more and more frustrating. And I think with Sam Tripoli and doing these worldwide debates, I think this is such a great idea. And it's going to have to force people that are pushing these woke ideologies or leftist ideologies. People are talking about like, my goodness, socialism, communism, atheism, feminism at the extremes. Like this huge push on woke, like people that are fighting for this stuff, like they're going to get so owned on these international forums, and people are finally going to get exposure to how nonsensical the arguments actually are, because again they're getting suppressed, especially in Canada. We have state-funded media that's far left, So all they do is try to spin the narrative to make it look like they're amazing, and just how socialism and communist models are superior, and being an atheist is somehow the measure of like a superior country, which is also proven throughout history to be factually incorrect. Strategic outlook 2026, first quarter. Displacement effect: the trade will not stop, it will move. We assess a high probability of trafficking routes shifted to Ecuador, already a rising hub, and West Africa as a relay point for cocaine to Europe. Violence in Canadian metros. As payment networks linked to Venezuela freeze, we anticipate an increase in, I anticipate, but I'm saying we, anticipate an increase in gang-related violence in Vancouver and Montreal. Uh, Local syndicates will likely engage in internecine conflict to recover debts or seize dwindling stockpiles. Oil versus narcotics. While the operation is framed as counter-narcotics, the swift move to secure oil infrastructure suggests a dual mandate: stabilizing international energy markets while denying adversaries like China and Russia a strategic foothold in the Western Hemisphere. Conclusion: the operation was a tactical success in dismantling a rogue state actor. However, the strategic reality is a fragmented landscape where decentralized networks will rapidly adapt, likely increasing near-term violence in secondary hubs like Canada. And so again, I'm trying to be biased on my reporting here. Sorry, not biased. I'm trying to be non-biased on my reporting. The opposite of what I said. And but I do think that it was necessary. I do. And what would you have done? This guy has rigged elections. Again, he has complete dictatorship over the country, and he has for a long time, like over 12 years or whatever it was. And before him was Chavez. No one was doing anything about it. People that were Democrats were talking about him being a dictator, and that people should do something about it. And people, even in Canada, the Liberals were talking for years, 15 years, 16 years, however long, 11 years, sorry. And they've done nothing about it. And yeah, and we have incredible special forces and people that from Canada that do joint operations in Latin and Southern America to assist with destabilizing these cartel networks, etc. So obviously, it's stuff I can't talk about publicly, but yeah, and just no, because we're too focused on woke DEI politics. We've got Jenny Carignan now, who literally created a citation like within months of her becoming the CDS, a woke DEI hire, to be clear, and putting a citation. And the first thing on the list is if you're DEI, how DEI you were to get this citation. Come on. Not how fit, how strong, how amazing, like like being a war hero on a battlefield. No, DEI. Which is, it's the military, especially in the combat arms, is supposed to be merit based. Just to be clear, if I haven't been clear for the last 25 years. and that is coming from someone that was in the most male dominated career you could possibly be in as an infantry officer with the Patricias in Canada. And did that for 15 years before I incorporated and immediately got working into the private sector, security, industry, defense, executive protection. For again, big players here. We're talking about the Bank of Canada governor and SCG. We're talking about the prime minister, etc. But I refuse in the last few years to do any more security details because, again, like I do think that people need to be protected. And again, something horrific happening. Like I think that is the worst thing. I think that people should be arrested and jailed. Look what's happening in Venezuela. They said it was so therapeutic to see Maduro in handcuffs. They were crying, they're celebrating in the streets, etc. Like this is what people need. Had anything happened to him, this vindication and this celebration that people have, like it wouldn't be had. It wouldn't be as, again, successful. I'm going to reiterate that had he not been alive. And again, him being in the courts and in jail, there are so many people within Venezuela, that like the large majority of people and people internationally that fled Venezuela that are, again, they're seeing him in handcuffs, they're seeing him walking with again, like he is a literal scumbag dictator, and they are loving this. I know I'm just being so redundant here, but I'm going to get into my Instagram stories here. And so just to show you the hypocrisy, like even Chucky Chuck Schumer, 2020, Trump not doing enough to combat Maduro. Chucky in 2026, removing Maduro was way too much. So it's not even just him. So fluctuating messages always by the party of hypocrisy. No, of course, no longer available. This is my doggies yesterday. So this is Dallas Alexander. I've worked with him. Again, I don't really know him, but I've worked with him. I was Combat Support Company 2IC when he was in Edmonton, a sniper. And then when I was at JTF2 for a few years, he was obviously there. I don't know if he came in after or during. Like I don't know if I was there first or him, to be honest with you, or around the same time. But he went obviously as an assaulter. I went as a supporter to be the 2IC of a squadron. This is what he has to say.
Delta Force, we have a lot of oil in Canada, and we have a shit leader. Just come do what you do. Hey, yo.
So people are slamming people for joking around about that, and saying like, you know, Carney's not a narco terrorist, et cetera, et cetera. Carney is a dictator. Carney has destroyed Canada for years. Carney is not a good human being, and yeah, the death and destruction that has happened because of certain bills and policies and measures and propaganda that's been spewed by that fucking scumbag. I would love to see him in jail. He is a traitor to Canada. And so joking around about it, this is the way people again can like decompress and just show frustration in a peaceful way. So it's by joking about it, respectfully speaking. And do we want it to get to that level under Carney? Look at the last, again, like 11 years under these leftists. It completely incompetent. People that have no experience within like regarding like history, geography, security, defense, never served their countries. In respectfully speaking, I'm talking about people that are supposed to be the heads of the country. They should have some form of experience actually serving the country, whether that be in law enforcement, the military, things like that.
Hey, Russia just sent the Wagner Group to Venezuela. Hey, Marine. Jag tror att church comrade. You ready?
This is a very odd take. Having like a smugness or an arrogance.
And the guy looked like he couldn't even do 5 push-ups, right? Like, oh, the Wagner Group. Oh, are you ready? I'm so tough because the Wagner Group's going to get the freaking Delta guys. Are you crazy? So anyways, I like what this guy said about it. He's hilarious. Mandatory Fun Day. And so this is his take on that moronic comment.
About the idea that your fellow countrymen may die in war. Maybe I'm misreading it, but it seems like you're almost relishing the idea to prove a point. But that being said, it's also wrong. The United States Marine Corps is ready to meet any strategic threat in the world if it is pointed at it by the leadership of the United States. Marines will, if they are told to solve a problem, they will slit your throat and drink your blood in front of your family. Okay? Like, it's not even funny. And what happened in Venezuela, granted, there weren't Marines involved in that, but what happened in Venezuela, regardless of how you feel about it, like legally or morally, it was a showcase of just exceptional U.S. military prowess. The sheer complexity of that operation is absolutely mind-boggling. And then the operation itself took less time than probably any of the meetings that took place to plan for it. The U.S. destroyed defense systems, air defense systems, with air assets in like 20 minutes. It seems like we frequently forget, like internationally, what the United States is capable of. And then the United States does something and everybody's like, oh, wow, they're really good at military. Like, yeah, we're very good at military. We weren't for the first like 100 to 150 years of our nation's history. I mean, that's probably, that figure's probably off, but it's somewhere around there, I think. And it was primarily because we sucked at logistics. And then we got the logistics dialed in, and we are now capable of things that no other country is on Earth. Even if you look at history, what the U.S. is capable of in comparison to other countries is like insane. Like, it's nuts. You do not want the United States Marines or any of the United States military going anywhere to solve a problem, because it's gotten really bad if it's gotten to that point. The United States has to steward its power correctly. And some people are going to say exactly what happened to Maduro is being a good steward of that power. And some people are going to say showing restraint would have been a good way to steward that power. But yeah, I mean, this is a weird take.
Hey, Russia just sent the Wagner Group to Venezuela.
And in recorded history, I will say that was a flawless operation. Like, it was so exceptionally well done. I am so impressed. And this is where there are people that are anti-war, etc. Like, I respectfully, and again, this is probably why I don't get invited on a lot of shows too, is because like I adore Sam Tripoli and so many other people that are considered to be like more libertarian or conservative voters. Like they're anti-war no matter what. But I'm going to, and I've called them out on this. Like, I've done videos and I have the name and I'm saying, are they wrong in this, etc. And I mean that respectfully. It's just to open the door for a discussion about this, right? You still need a military in order to protect your country from invaders, from people that will exploit you. Okay, based on human behavior alone, you will always need some form of security and defense system. Every single species has it. Think about that. And so for people to say, to condemn this operation, etc., like, oh, we could have done this like in other ways. How? Give me an example. Give me an example. There were minimal casualties, and by the way, these were people from oh my god, oh fuck, I'm forgetting it. Anyways, it was another country. Let me just get in here too with the casualties, because Cuban forces. Thank you. I'm saying thank you to myself because I'm looking at my notes. So yeah, so casualties, so battle damage assessment verified. Actually, maybe I'll get into it because, again, I nerd out on this stuff because, again, it's been part of my job. And again, this is open source information. It's just that because of how I search things, again, I just get access to a little bit more information. And so, so battle damage assessment from Operation Absolute Resolve. The operational picture is becoming clear as BDA comes in. That's battle damage assessment. Confirmed casualties, 32 Cuban military intelligence personnel, KIA, Cuban government official statement, 2 days national mourning declared. And so these were like their like equivalent of like the special forces, like the elite, like security teams that Cuba bragged about. And then again, like, look what happened. And they were like bragging about just like how like the US could do nothing. Well, they did. So 80 plus total deaths per Venezuelan officials. And again, this is really low numbers. And if this is something that like no other escalations will happen, this is a phenomenal success. Again, I'm just reiterate. And these were people that were protecting a literal tyrannical dictator who was destroying the country and killing people, with corrupted military officials, etc. as well. And he was so concerned about, like, he couldn't even trust his own people within his own government, again, to turn on him, to have like a leak or someone from within that that takes him out. And so he had to hire like specialized teams from other countries. Large part of Maduro's security team eliminated. Venezuelan Defense Minister Vladimir Pedrino Lopez confirms civilian casualties confirmed, specific numbers still being assessed. So that is very unfortunate. 2 U.S. personnel wounded. Trump confirmed they're expected to survive. 1 U.S. helicopter damaged. So 0 U.S. KIA, which is killed in action. Infrastructure damage. Fortuna, Venezuela's largest military complex, primary target, significant damage. La Carlota Air Base struck. La Guaira Port, sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, Guaira. Container logistics damage visible in satellite imagery. Multiple military sites across Miranda, Aragua, La Guaira states. Civilian infrastructure in southern Caracas power grid, and that was because of how close they were to that power grid. Just to be clear, so Venezuela defense minister claims residential areas hit by helicopters launched missiles. Operational details: 150 plus U.S. aircraft involved, at least 7 confirmed explosions. Operation duration under 30 minutes. Actually, it was under 3 hours. Again, I mean, maybe they're talking about the actual operation on the ground and stuff. So, extraction team, Delta Force helicopters, supporting assets, EA-18G Growlers, EW, strike aircraft, ISR platforms. The Cuban angle, this is significant. 32 Cuban military intelligence, KIA, means Cuba was providing more than advisory support. They were directly protecting Maduro's compound. Cuban President Diaz-Canel confirmed they were providing protection at the request of Venezuela. And he's also, anyway, I'll stop getting so sidetracked, but this explains the security hardening around Maduro's location and why the extraction required such overwhelming force. The U.S. wasn't just fighting Venezuelan security, they were fighting Cuban special operations personnel who've been training for exactly the scenario since the Bay of Pigs. Strategic assessment, the casualty ratio, 80 plus Venezuelan Cubans versus 0 US KIA, demonstrates the effectiveness of the comprehensive approach. Cyber degradation, which was incredible, said and dead, done flawlessly. Electronic, and by the way, completely disrupted. I'll get into that in a minute, but Russia and China should be concerned about just how effective this was, and they probably are. Cyber degradation, electronic warfare, precision strikes, then extraction. By the time Delta hit the compound, the defensive network had already collapsed. Trump's comment about having a second wave prepared wasn't needed suggests the operational plan anticipated heavier resistance than factually materialized, or than actually materialized. Okay, so the real story in these numbers: Cuba lost 32 personnel defending another country's leader. Strategic commitment that failed catastrophically. Venezuela's external support didn't just signal non-intervention; it bled out trying to intervene and failed anyway. So that was a BDEA assessment that I wanted to assess. So I verified, and it's largely accurate with several critical corroborating details emerging from official channels in the last 12 hours. So this is a BDA that I got from someone that I've been communicating with for a little while, he is someone that's part of the military intelligence community, international intelligence community, speaks multiple languages, more of an expert, I think, on the Middle East. But anyways, and so his assessment, and this is my, I am showing it. I thought I wasn't sharing this. Anyways, this makes it easier. So anyways, this is my assessment of this. So, okay, so your initial BDA is largely accurate with several critical corroborating details emerging from official channels in the last 12 hours. Cuban forces confirmed. Okay, Venezuelan forces aligns with intercepted communications and statements from Venezuelan defense minister. Okay, confirmed. Infrastructure destruction confirmed. Operational analysis of the second wave in the Cuban failure confirmed. So tactical implication suggests the U.S. anticipated a tiered defense where the first wave said dead suppression of air defense might need a follow-up strike to clear the path for extraction. The fact that it wasn't needed indicates the Venezuelan-Cuban air defense network collapsed instantly under cyber and electronic warfare pressure. So, because I talked about, so anyways, strategic conclusion, the operation has exposed a critical vulnerability in the authoritarian franchise model. The myth of protection. For 20 years, the Cuban military sold its services to Venezuela as an ensuring agent against regime change. The insurance policy just expired. Russia-China signal. The ease with which Russia made air defense systems, the S-300 VMs, and the BUKM-2s were neutralized by US EW platforms will send shockwaves through Beijing and Moscow. The anti-access aerial denial A2AD bubble over Caracas popped in less than 30 minutes. Okay, so SET is suppression of enemy air defense, the jammer, the blinder, the method, EW, cyber attacks, anti-radiation missiles, DAD, destruction of enemy air defenses, so the hammer, the killer. So this is like more physical destruction. And just in case people were interested in that. So the application and operation absolute resolve. Venezuela operates the S-300VM, a formidable Russian-made system that can shoot down aircrafts from 150 miles away. By the way, should be a concern for the U.S. The said phase before the helicopters, which are slow and vulnerable, entered Venezuelan airspace. The U.S. cyber and EW assets likely blinded the S-300 radars. The Venezuelan operators would have seen nothing but static or ghost targets or fake targets, whatever they want to call it. And then the dead phase simultaneously or it could be after, strike aircraft, likely hit the radar control vans and missiles launched at Fort Tuna and La Carlota as part of the extraction, likely. Okay. I'm going to go back to my Instagram so I don't go on too many more tangents. But yeah, this guy, like, anyway.
The strangest part isn't Charlie Kirk. It isn't even TPUSA. The strangest part is the lineage behind it.
Listen.
Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino wrote a book called Mind War while stationed at the Presidio in San Francisco. Not a self-help book, not a political rant, a blueprint for psychological warfare. Mass persuasion, narrative control, cognitive terrain. And Aquino was also an open Satanist. He never hid it, never denied it.
Aquino and his wife, you are a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army.
Correct.
Now, and how does the Army feel about you being head of the Temple of Set?
The Army has known about my religion for the entire span of my Army career, which began in 1968. And there was a reasonable amount of curiosity, as there has been all the way along, with what exactly is this strange and unusual thing. And I've talked about it in much the same way that I've talked here today on your show about it. And other than that, the Army has paid very little attention to it, the same as it would to anybody who was, say, a follower of Hinduism or of Buddhism or any other slightly unusual religion today.
So you just go about your Army duties and it's fine and okay? Yeah.
Now here's the part people skip past. Aquino didn't write Mind War alone. His collaborative with retired Major General Paul E. Vallely. Fast forward. Vallely sits on the board at Turning Point USA. So take a step back. Strip away the merch, the slogans, the crowd noise. What is TPUSA actually doing? It's not just debating ideas. It's persuasion at scale, changing minds, moving groups, steering perception. And when the same people tied to a psychological warfare playbook are embedded inside a movement built to shape mass belief, coincidence stops being a useful explanation. This isn't about symbols. This is about methods. Because Mind War doesn't care what flag you wave. It only cares that you don't notice you're waving it. The strangest part isn't Charlie.
Oh, my mic was off. Excuse me. There's so many organizations that there's the umbrella of like, this is a good organization and there's a lot of good that comes from it. But again, we got to look at, unfortunately, people within these organizations that are part of a steering committee that are doing things to intentionally still push propaganda and psychological operations on at a large scale. And they've gotten way more effective at it. Okay, so my posts are all over the place. There's one in particular, too, that I want to share that might be controversial to people. And again, this is the stuff that doesn't get me invited on shows or invited back on shows, because there are, like, again, podcasters who are, again, they have way more subscribers and viewers, etc. And they're more professional with their content. Again, they get a lot of money and they have a production team and they have people that are, that are frequent guests, etc., etc. But it's like when I'm on like the opposite side of certain events, like my assessment of it, like again, and then I call people out on it, they don't like it. I get it.
Tonight,
but anyway,
new evidence that the federal government has ignored a threat to the integrity of our elections. A group of Venezuelan businessmen have bought an American company that supplies electronic voting machines and counts the votes. But your government didn't even review the sale. A voting machine company, critical to this country's election count, and they can't tell you whether or not the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States reviewed it or not?
They have no answer for us, and
These are the most arrogant, incompetent, bureaucratic idiots.
Smartmatic, based in Boca Raton, provides voting machines in local elections in the United States, like this election in Chicago in March. But Smartmatic has only 5 to 7 people working in Boca Raton, Florida. Smartmatic is a labyrinth of international holding companies owned by Venezuelan businessmen. The Smartmatic and other voting machine companies are private companies. They have proprietary software they can call a trade secret. Electronic voting experts with extensive experience say it's nearly impossible to verify if a proprietary system is tamper-proof.
All of the voting system vendors in the United States are private companies. The problem is the closed-door proprietary nature of the process. The closed system we have right now makes it extremely hard to find out what's going on. And that means that should a thief get in a position of power, we would never know.
Some voter watchdog groups and others in Congress are calling for a full review and say the ownership of all electronic voting companies should be reviewed to determine if it poses a risk to U.S. elections.
It's funny that guy's playing again. Yeah, looking at Canadian elections as well. CNN, that was 2006. That was when there were more people on CNN that were actually reporting real news. This might be a little bit too gross for people to watch. I'm going to share it anyway. This is a bathroom. I think it's in Planet Fitness. Yes, at a Planet Fitness. So someone trans in Planet Fitness locker room. So where I'm saying that there are people that used to be like allies or people that fully supported the LGBTQ plus friggin' community or the LGBT community. There are people that have seen it get completely hijacked. And there are people that have been exploiting these movements in order to gain access to women's safe spaces. And whatever you want to call it, autogonophilia or whatever it is, where there are men that get sexual arousal out of wearing women's clothing or being in women's spaces. It's again, like these, respectfully speaking, as someone who was diagnosed with complex PTSD, like you have a literal mental health issue, respectfully speaking, that you need to manage. Okay, and people should not be affirming this or promoting this or supporting this or enabling this, because there could have been children in that bathroom, and you can very plainly see what this man is doing. Look at the shadow. I feel uncomfortable.
You're really comfortable touching your shit. Bro, I literally saw your shadow, bro. Like, come on, now.
Listen, you saw my shadow that was in the how do you how to do myself together. So I don't understand.
Okay, pal. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, pal.
In a women's locker room in Planet Fitness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And people want to, like, this could be an echo chamber. People will tell me like, oh, like this is like it's so rare. There are so many videos and examples of this happening in locker rooms, in bathrooms, and where men are. And again, they're showing videos of this. I don't even know why they're doing this. Again, maybe it's rage bait or whatever. But where they're it's getting censored, obviously, but they're exposing themselves in mirrors and stuff like that. And you see like even like women and children like walking in behind them to go to the stalls and stuff like that. Like this is the part again that we don't support, right? Like and then with the mutilation of children and the hormone blockers and things like that. Again, like whatever you do over the age of 18, as long as you're not hurting anyone or acting like a goddamn predator, you know, then whatever. Did I not share it?
Can all of you want to be socialist performance activists stop appropriating people's sufferings to cosplay as some sort of revolutionaries? Iranians are risking their lives in the streets. People are being beaten, imprisoned, murdered, and half of you won't even say anything. And the other half are actually defending the system which is doing the murdering. And Venezuelans who lived under a brutal thug of a dictator don't need Western activists rewriting their reality for the sake of your political theatrics. You're out here in the streets screaming no kings about a democratically elected president and giving dictators and Islamist thugs a free pass. Do you even see yourselves? You don't have to love Donald Trump, but if your hatred of him overrides the voices of entire nations of people, you might want to rethink what your point is. Their history, their lives, their experiences are not props for your bullshit politics. So here's an idea. How about you stop speaking over people's lived experiences, shut the fuck up, stay home, and just listen? Can all of you want to be socialist performance?
All right. I don't know if I can find it anymore. I will be able to find it, but it might take me a little bit of time. But before I do, I did want to go on X because if you look at my social media, like you would think that like I am like a troll, but it's again just like to certain people. And so, for example, Moose on the Loose, who I highly encourage people to take a look at his content, he was calling out Aaron O'Toole, and rightfully so. And again, I've been calling out this guy as well. And again, he's the reason why I didn't vote conservative in 2021. He was literally the reason, and so many other people as well. And this guy is being such a troll to Moose on the Loose. And so I was watching his show yesterday, and I saw that Aaron O'Toole is being a literal troll to him. And this guy needs like a reality check, again in a peaceful way. And so what I did was I commented on his comment and in support of Moose, and so many others did as well. So he did get ratioed, and he should still continue to get ratioed because this guy literally is justifying stuff that he's done in the past, saying, oh, it was a pandemic, we didn't know what was going on. You refused to do anything with information that you had, medical, scientific, and government data. Aaron O'Toole, you'll never watch my show, but if you did, like, this is to you. People were emailing you. I'll reiterate, medical, scientific, and government data. People were calling your office. People were tagging you and multiple conservatives within your party, including Pierre Poilievre. We were tagging you in posts with medical, scientific, and government data, not memes, not misinformation, not propaganda pushed from the friggin' government and CBC. And it's unfortunate. And again, he surrounds himself. He's a grifter. He surrounds himself with people that are veterans that are doing good work in Canada and internationally. But unfortunately, again, respectfully speaking, that I've worked with in the past, that I've communicated with, and I still donate to a lot of these companies because, again, they're doing good work. And just because we don't align ideologically, or just because they don't know the reality of the friggin' what's going on in the goddamn world, and are refusing to look into it, like, he's within that group of people that think that they know everything because, like, oh, I was like a general, I was a colonel, oh, I was a major, oh, I was a friggin' chief of police, blah, blah, blah. Respectfully speaking, okay, guys, you got COVID way wrong. You got 9/11, and you still do have it. You're way wrong. So many other events, things are going on in Russia, Ukraine, Gaza, Israel, et cetera, et cetera. And these are the groups that he's hanging out with. And they vote right. They vote left, mostly, but within his group, obviously more right, because again, he's a fake conservative, just like Ford, but still, again, on paper conservative. And so he surrounds himself with more conservative business owners now, and high levels of government, but again, people that are in an echo chamber. And he's accusing Moose on the Loose of being in an echo chamber, and anyone that's coming to his defense. Again, the arrogance. And so I'm just going to get on my X feed. I don't mean to sound so salty. It's just, again, this is what I mean. This is what makes people lose respect in the conservative movement. And, oh, there I am. Okay, so Moose on the Loose. So replying to Aaron O'Toole. So this is the post. So Aaron, your reply is beyond stupid. First off, if you spent 2 seconds to look me up, you'd realize I spent 8 years researching and making videos on 900 international topics before making political videos, of which I have over 1,200 of them. You think I don't know about issues? If you are so smart, why did you lose to Trudeau? I have accurately predicted things over and over. Anyways, and so he says he lost to Trudeau because of the pandemic and because of what was his other big reason? Oh yeah, because of people splitting their vote with the PPC. No, people voted PPC because of you. Reality check, not the other way around. And so anyway, everything is being pushed towards carbon credits, etc., etc. Chart is laughable. It's backed by sources. You only replied that because you have nothing to actually criticize about it. If you did and it was valid, I'd update it. You are a liberal shill. And yeah, so military intelligence operative accused of lying to superiors over Ukraine contracts. Anyways, I did reply to it. Was my reply taken down? That would be hilarious if it was. Yeah, Donald Best. The media is now slowly conditioning the public to accept what was once unspeakable. Mandated mRNA injections killed, injured, and sterilized. Those who raised alarms were silenced. Detective Helen Bruce was right about the infant deaths. She's now being punished for acting with integrity and fulfilling her sworn duty. Yeah, so it went from you don't wait to get your kids vaccinated to yes, some children may have died from COVID shots. And so I gave this to him. I said, here's my post on LinkedIn. Operational assessment of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. I added an intervention template for people to use to send to the Secretary General, Canadian Radio, Television, and Telecommunications Commission. So I hope people do that. Yeah, Aaron O'Toole's Substacks are ridiculous, and he praises Carney, which is disgusting to me, and has like a little blurb on Pierre Poilievre, and with nothing of substance. So this year, my end of year essays will take the form of free advice from a former politician. No, thank you. It is worth what you pay for. It is worth what you pay for it, I guess. First up, advice for the Prime Minister. Advice to the Prime Minister. And then one of his justifications to some people was the pandemic made it challenging given no events, travel, and even modified parliament. In the end, I'm proud of the policies we put forward and of not giving into the divisive election called on the vaccine mandate. Did my best. Absolutely weak. So my comment was proud. I'm a conservative voter who voted PPC in 2021 because of you. You reversed your opposition to the federal carbon tax. He doesn't want to tell that to people. So he literally reversed his opposition on the federal carbon tax. And so people want to slam Pierre Poilievre, but like since the very beginning, this guy was opposed to it and still very much is. And this is necessary to be removed. It's a grift. Okay, it is not helping Canada at all, at home or our relationships internationally, especially with the US. And he was for it. Like, again, moron. And assault weapons ban. So he was also for gun grabs. Very conservative of you. He fell for the COVID propaganda despite multiple people contacting your office and tagging you on social media with facts, not memes. So I only get a certain amount of characters in these responses. But Aaron O'Toole, he has such an ego. He's such a grifter. He will never acknowledge mistakes that he made that caused Canadians harm and death and suffering. He will never acknowledge why he didn't get voted in. No, it's our fault. Oh, it's PPC's fault. No, it isn't. Actually, they were the only party at the time that were against unlawful measures against its people regarding the mandates during the pandemic and the forced inoculations and people not able to travel or work or any of that stuff, see their family, et cetera, et cetera. And people are saying, oh, it wasn't that bad for you, especially if you're vaccinated. You didn't go through what the unvaccinated went through, ladies and gentlemen, respectfully speaking, and still are going through in the courts and beyond. Reputational damage, career damage. Are you kidding me? Relationships broken. The forced isolationism. Like I just can't, I could go on. censorship bills, removing our firearms, et cetera, et cetera. Like Aaron O'Toole, you are no conservative. You are no patriot to Canada. You are no nationalist. You are another grifter. Anyway, I know it's so negative. I don't mean to be. It's just frustrating. And for him to go after someone like Moose on the Loose, who is actually literally way more informed on the reality of the world, you know, especially in Canada, than Aaron O'Toole could ever be. And he would absolutely gain from hiring Moose on the Loose. I think his name is David, but anyways, to be part of his team, his advisory staff or whatever. And, you know, but it comes with removing ego and having a little bit of humility. So there's other things I wanted to talk about. There's so many things ongoing. I didn't make it onto the Rumble Content Creator Program yet again. There was only a couple of months last year where I was able to make my my monthly allotments, but not anymore. Anyway, so I might get off of these podcasts, be less frequent, and attempt to get on American podcasts more. But I can only do that if I get people assisting me with that and actually reaching out to them and giving them recommendations for what content they want me to share and things like that. So anyway, was there anything else? Nope, that's pretty big news. So on that note, I will leave it at that. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.